Very much, choir. That was beautiful. Miss Alice, that was one of your favorites, weren't it? Farther along. Amen. Amen. Before I begin, I want to just say something, and it really is a lot to do with our message this morning. There's from time to time, we have people in our church family that we love and that may be going through some difficult time. And we have such a family in our church at this time right now. And we desire to help them. And we want to make sure that everyone has time to prepare for that. So we're going to have a special love offering next Sunday for a family that's in our church that's going through a difficult time. A time and a situation that each one of us could be in ourselves. So I just ask that you be generous and consider this as you pray about it this week, that God will lead you as to what you can do to help this family. I don't mention their names because certainly we're not interested in embarrassing anyone, but we just love them and we just are grateful for them. But I just ask that you consider that this week, and next week we'll be prepared to take a special love offering. If you have your Bibles, I'd like you to turn to Luke chapter 8. We're going to be looking at verses 16 through 21 right now. But if you remember it wasn't last week, it was the week before last, I guess. We heard Jesus make that announcement, or even maybe it's before that. I can't remember where we are. It's taken so long, it seems, for me to go through Luke. But he said, "He who has ears to hear, he who has ears to hear, let him hear." And it seems that there are plenty of folks around that have ears. But not everybody has ears to hear. We hear what we want to hear too often, and I think one of the bigger problems that many of us have is the reason that we don't hear so well is because we're not quiet enough to hear. We're more interested in telling rather than hearing. And sometimes we only hear what we want to hear because really we ask the wrong questions. There was a story one day where this old man was walking his dog and his mule along the road. And around the corner came this pickup truck and knocked the man, the mule, and the dog into the ditch. And because of this, the guy, he decided to take the man to court and sue him for his losses. And so when he was sitting on the stand, on the witness stand, the defense cross-examiner asked the man a question. He said, I want you to answer this question yes or no. I want you to answer it yes or no. Did you or did you not say at the time of the accident that you were perfectly fine? Well, the old man said, well, me and my dog and my mule were walking down the road, and then all of a sudden, and the attorney said, listen, I told you to answer yes or no. Yes or no, that's all I want to know. Did you or did you not say I am perfectly fine? Yes or no? And the old man says, well, me and my dog and my mule were walking down the road, and all of a sudden this truck come out, and the attorney said, Judge, you got to stop him. I asked him to give me an answer of yes or no. Did you not say you were fine at the scene of the accident? And the judge says, well, it seems obvious the man wants to tell us something. Let's hear from him. So the old man says, well, me and my dog and my mule were walking down the road, and this truck come around the bend, and he knocked us both, all three of us, in the ditch. The man stopped his truck, and he come back, and he looked, and he saw that my dog was hurt. He went back in his truck and got his rifle, walked over and shot my dog. Then he looked down at my mule and saw that his leg was broken. He cocked his rifle and shot the mule. Then he looked at me and said, how are you doing? And he says, I'm perfectly fine. This morning, I want to advise you to be careful how you hear. Everyone, please stand. Be careful how you hear, friends. Beginning at verse 16. No one lights a lamp and hides it in a jar or puts it under a bed. Instead, he puts it on a stand so that those who come in can see the light. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Therefore, consider carefully how you listen. Whoever has will be given more, and whoever does not have, even what he thinks he has, will be taken from him. Now Jesus and his brothers came to see him, but they were not able to get near him because of the crowd. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to see you." He replied, "My mother and brothers are those who hear God's word and put it into practice." Let's pray. I ask this morning that we, Father, as we listen to your word, that we hear carefully. We recognize that there's so much that we must know. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. We look at these passages of Scripture here this morning, and I hope that we're going to see a few things in these verses 16 through 18 for the most part. 16 through 21 for the most part. But in verses 16 through 18, we're going to see what does it mean? What does it mean to listen to Jesus? In the verses 19 through 21, we're going to find out what it means to belong to Jesus. And in verses 22 through 25, which we will not get to today, but it's going to ask the question, what does it mean to trust in Jesus? So next week you can begin to study these last few verses about Jesus where he calms the storm. But in verse 16 we see here, no one lights a lamp and hides it in a jar or puts it under a bed. Instead he puts it on a stand so that those who come in can see the light. That seems pretty obvious. It seems like the normal thing to do. Why would anyone put, and I always picture the apostles when Jesus asks a questions like that, they're probably saying, yes, we know. We know no one puts a lamp under the mattress. And basically what they had was just a mattress. They didn't have the beds that we would have today. If you put this light under the mattress, it would either smother the light out or it may catch the whole thing on fire. I don't know, but he's seeing this is a ridiculous statement. And the lamps of that day were mostly, if we got a picture, the lamps of that day were mostly made of terracotta. And if you'll just see what it kind of looks like, the oil was placed in there and a wick was just laid in the end of it. And that lamp was put on a nightstand or a lampstand or set on a table somewhere. It has a purpose, just like our lamps have a purpose today, right? You cut the lamp on so that you can see. And so this is obvious what it is to take place in here. But in verse 17, it says, "For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open." Now notice that Jesus is still talking about why he's talking in parables. Now we can't forget what we just talked about in these verses just before. He's given explanation now to the parables. You've got to stay with us when we study through this book. We have to stay where we're at. Understand that he just talked about the parable of the seed and the soils. So he's still talking about there. There's nothing hidden. And a parable is a way of kind of hiding something in this particular way. And he says that there will not be disclosed or nothing concealed, that will not be known or brought into the open. In other words, to put it plainly, hiding makes truth many times more visible. Now you're thinking, that's strange. I don't even want to hear you say something like that. I always think about Easter egg hunting. How many of you like Easter egg hunting? Yeah, everybody likes Easter egg hunting. And the neat thing about Easter egg hunting is when you got let loose to go get the eggs, to find them, your parents most likely didn't hide them completely, did they? I mean, they had a little egg show, and there was a little egg in a leaf or something, and you could find them, and you had to hunt for them. That's why they called it Easter egg hunting. You had to hunt for the egg. You had to find it. Now your parents or whoever hid the eggs could have hidden them, then you could have never found them. They could still be rotting somewhere out here on the grounds. But they put them in such a way that you could find them. But if they hid them so if they hid them completely, the kids would have been discouraged and they would have said, I don't want to go Easter egg hunting no more. I always go with my little basket and I never get anything in it. It's just a waste of time. Or your parents could have taken them and laid them all out on the table and just said, kids, come get your eggs. What fun in that was there? You know, when they're just there, just get all you can and put them in your basket. It's interesting. It's exciting to search and to find something, to look for something. God knows that. He made us that way. He made us so that we would be interested in. And the reason He spoke in these parables is because He's interested in dealing and speaking to the ones that have a desire to seek. Okay? For those that are not interested in seeking, okay, you don't get no eggs. That's fine. But for those of us that love and seek His Word, that's what we do. And that's how He does it so oftentimes. We'll do this. So we see that in Proverbs 25:2, he says that it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the glory of kings is to search it out. God loves to conceal truth sometimes. He's not malicious in it. He just knows us. And we like it too. We're intrigued by mysteries. I'm reading a book right now that's a mystery. I love mysteries. By things that are cryptic and they're hidden. We'd love to search them out. And God appeals to us in our human nature in that particular way. He does it in nature. He does it in nature. You know, we'll look all around us in science, and the man believes that he's discovered something surprising to God. It's not surprising to God. He put it there so you would find it. The person who had discovered penicillin, they think, wow, what a great thing that man has done. He's developed penicillin. God says it's already been there. He already knew it. He had it there for man to find it. When we think about computers and all the things that the computers can do, we think about how great man is because he can do it. God already knew those things. He made it possible for us to seek it out. When we get in a spaceship and we head off to Pluto or somewhere, we're thinking how great man is. And God said, look at all great the things that I've already done. I'm just wanting you to find it. He did it in His Son, Jesus, also. He did it in His Son. He placed God in a human form so that we would seek Him and we'd look at Him. And the apostles, they were constantly looking at that. If you'll look at the end of that, I'll get ahead of myself. But there at the end, in verse 20, chapter, slow down, Steve. Kim was always telling me, she said, Steve, slow down. You're getting too excited. You're trying to say too much at one time. So I think I'll have a drink of water. Look at verse 25. I'm going to get ahead of myself just so you can see what's there. These apostles were always seeking. Jesus said, where is your faith? He asked His disciples. In fear and amazement, they asked one another, who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey Him. It's there if you're looking, if you have a desire to see. If you got ears to hear, man. There's so much that He wants to show you. He wants you to experience so much. If you'll listen carefully. These guys were learning. They were beginning to understanding the principle. Jesus knew that men would grasp the truth more readily, even if He hid it in a parable in some way. Verse 18 says, therefore, consider carefully how you listen. Consider carefully how you listen. Whoever has will be given more. Whoever does not have, even what he thinks he has, will be taken from him. Jesus has already made a big deal about people with ears to hear and all this stuff, you know. And so now He's saying that we should be careful how we listen. What does He mean by that? How do we be careful about how we listen? How do you listen? How do you listen? I know I made a big deal of it a couple of weeks ago, but, you know, about how well we listen. Because, friends, a lot is riding on this. A lot's riding on it. There are those that hear the word Sunday after Sunday, and they walk out the doors and they have no idea what's been said. The study we've been having in Hebrews, he dealt with this in chapter 4, Hebrews 4, 1 and 2. It said, therefore, since the promise of entering His rest still stands, let us be careful that none of you be found to have fallen short of it. For we also have had the gospel preached to us, just as they did, talking about the Israelites. But the message they heard was of no value to them, because those who heard did not combine it with faith. They didn't act on what they heard. I believe sometimes that it would be better, now hear me, that even a person never even heard the gospel. Never heard the gospel preached until he was ready to receive it. And I say this because the person that hears it over and over and over and over again that doesn't respond, his heart becomes harder and harder and harder, and he may never respond. That's why it's so wonderful when I see young people get saved. Their hearts are ready. Their hearts are just, I love Him. That's all they know. I love the Lord. I just want Him in my life. That's it. But as we get older and we get older and we get older, it's like, yeah, I know it's real, but when I use that word but, then there's where the problem lies. And I plead with you this morning, friends, listen to me. For the person that hears God's calling, do not harden your heart. Today is the day of salvation. I know it sounds like the end of the sermon, but it's not. I know lots of people are looking for God to do something in their life, to respond in some way. They listen to the Word of God and they listen to it wrongly. They hear what they want to hear. And I ask the question, are you seeking God for your benefit? Or are you seeking Him so that you'll know Him? It's two big differences. Two big differences. Whoever has will be given more, and whoever does not have, even what he thinks he has will be taken from him. When you're searching for the truth, having ears to hear, that is, you will discover far more. You will discover far more than you ever expected to find. Isn't that right? I mean, when you begin to really look, you're going to see, wow, I wasn't even expecting that. For the one that asks, he's going to receive. But for the one who does not ask, they will never find. This is dealing, the more is the knowledge, the more is the relationship, the more is the wisdom, the more is the light that we've been given to shine and to disperse the darkness. If we're careful how we hear, we'll be given so much more. But for the one who does not hear, what he thinks he's got, he ain't got nothing, but what he thinks he's got, that'll be taken from him also. Jesus said, you can't get this apart from seeking. If you do not want to search the Word of God and to seek the truth and think about it, then just forget it. If you're not willing to do that, it will have no meaning for you in your life. The Bible will be dull and dead and lifeless, and it'll mean nothing to you. And so it is for so many people. But if you're willing to look and you want to seek and you want to find, so much is going to be shown to you. And I hear people all the time say, I read it, Steve, I don't get nothing out of it. I'm telling you, man, you got to want to know something. You got to desire it. You got to pray about it. You got to seek into it. God is faithful. He says He'll do this, He'll do it. It's not God, it's you. I'm just being honest. It's not God. And the important thing is what you receive, you need to use it. You know it. If you don't use it, you lose it. And that's the truth. That's what He's saying, basically. That's the first little thing that Jesus said, or, that we make this little term from. You don't use it, you lose it. This is true. This is true about our brain. This is true about so many different things that we have, about our muscles, our body. If we don't use these things, we're going to lose them. We've got to use it. That's the principle of life. That's why Jesus spoke in parables, because these things are true. And if you search and you find the truth, you cannot see otherwise, and you'll find more than you expected. And if you don't search, you find that you have lost even the truth that you thought you had. And you say, wait, this is way too complicated. See, now I'm going to just say something, and I end with that little part. Luke places this little story in here a little bit different place than the other Gospels do. I won't get into the reasons why and all that, but you see as Luke writes his gospel that he's making a point. And this point here that he's making is about hearing. It's about what it is that we hear. And Luke is interested in that listening aspect. And he puts these stories together. And here he gives a good account of how to listen. And then in the next story we're going to see about this one particular one here about how we belong. About how we belong to Jesus. Now, we need to back up to Mark chapter 3 because we're going to get a taste of why Mary and Jesus' brothers are there in the first place to come visit him. I don't think they just came for a social call. They had a reason. If you go to Mark chapter 3, verse 20 and 21, we'll see here, then Jesus entered a house, and again a crowd gathered so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. When his family heard about this, okay, now this is interesting. Jesus is not eating. He's having some issues. Family hears about it. Family heard about this, and they went to take charge of him. Here's what they said. For they said, he is out of his mind. Now, where else would anybody say that Jesus was out of his mind? He's crazy. He's crazy. He's losing it. He's losing it. His mama, his brothers. We got to do something. We got to step in. We got to do this thing. So we see that Jesus' mother is obviously concerned that her boy is being overwhelmed. Now, the interesting thing about mothers, you don't stop being a mama just because your boy's 30, 33 years old, do you? Okay, they still yours. They still yours. You're going to be in their business. You're going to show up when they don't want you to show up. You're going to ask questions when they'd rather you be quiet. You're just mama. That's what you do, okay? If anybody don't like it, I mean, and that's tough. That's just the way it is. So mamas keep being mamas. And this is what Mary was doing. Now, Mary wasn't perfect. And that's one of the important things we need to realize about Mary, that she wasn't perfect. She didn't see all that God had in store. We also know that Jesus' brothers, they didn't believe in him. Now, I don't know why his brothers were there. Maybe even there they were to make fun of him. I don't know, but they came along. But we see in different places where they actually tried to trick him into going into Jerusalem at one time. In John 7:5 it says, for even his own brothers did not believe in him. How would you feel about that? How would you feel about that? Let me just say this without going into another sermon. I could easily go into one on this. When you become a follower of Christ, your greatest attack against you will most likely come from those that you thought loved you the most. All right? Let it sink in. If you follow the Lord, the ones that you thought loved you the most will be the ones that attack you the greatest. They're going to criticize you. They're going to blame you. They're going to say, why are you doing this? It don't make sense. You know, I know what kind of person you are. You know, that's what you hear. I know what you're like. Yeah, okay. No, you don't. Your own family will have the greatest doubts concerning your conviction. And your kinfolk will be the ones that give you the most grief. Why? Well, because they will not believe in you. They'll not believe in you. Jesus' brothers didn't believe in him. They're not going to believe in you. They're not going to believe in you. Let's go to Matthew chapter 10. I don't know if I can give that to Tim here. Now, I'm going to look at it real quick. Matthew 10, verse 34. 34 through 39. Marie, quick, so listen fast. 34-39, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. This is Jesus talking. Prince of Peace, okay? Prince of Peace saying I didn't come to bring peace. Okay. Do not suppose that I came to bring peace on the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn man against his father, a daughter against his mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Man, that's tough. That's tough. So that is why that I love this passage that we're getting ready to go into. Who is my family? Who is my family? And he's making, what he's making is it's an illustration as to that the family we belong to. In verse 21, it says, those who hear God's word and put it into practice. Now, I know I'm jumping to the end, but that's what he's talking about. Verse 19, 21, listen to me. Now, Jesus' mother and brothers came to see him, and they were not able to get near him because of the crowd. Someone told him, your mother and brothers standing outside wanting to see you. He replied, my mother and brothers are those who hear God's word and put it into practice. Wow. What a thing to say. And do you see how the Lord is putting all this together? The parable of the seed and the soil represents the different types of hearers, okay? You know, the one that landed on the ground is the one that was quickly picked up and they just refused to hear. They refused to hear it. And then there was those that were among the rocks, and then some testing came along, and soon that fizzled out because they didn't hear. And then there was those that heard, and it fell in the weeds, and then because of the trials that it was taken away. But those that heard, those that had the ears to hear, the soil that it fell into there, it was a bumper crop, up to 100 times, it says, growth that it made. This is the lesson of hearing. This whole thing is a lesson of hearing. And he now gets into the practical point of hearing. And that's to put it into practice. Now we should know something here, because I think that many would hear this and be appalled to how Jesus responded to these guys about his mom and his family. And if you see it that way, then you've terribly mistaken who Jesus is. Jesus was the eldest in the family. He had 4 brothers, and their names were James, Joseph, Simon, and Jude. We know he had some sisters, at least 2, probably more, don't know their names. It's obvious probably that Jesus' father must have died sometime after he was 12 years old, because it was the last time that he was mentioned when he went to the temple. He was there with them at that time. And so there was a great responsibility that the eldest son had to take care of the family and do the things for his family. There was no indication that Jesus shirked any of those responsibilities growing up. The Catholic Church would have us to believe that Mary was a perpetual virgin, meaning that she never had relations with her husband, and that all the other children were most likely children from Joseph's other marriage. There's no indication in Scriptures about this at all. Nothing. We know that Jesus had a great affection for his mom, and as the eldest son, even as he hung on the cross, he looked down at his mother, and John was next to her. He said, Mother, behold your son, or woman, behold your son, son, behold your mother. He was making sure that she was taken care of, even then. Paul even talked about a man that won't take care of his family is no better than an unbeliever. The Scripture tells us over and over and over again that the family that we've been given to each other is very important. I say this so we won't have a wrong heart about who Jesus is. Jesus loved his family. The family is commended all throughout Scriptures. But we see that Mary and her boys are here with her to see her son, and she is concerned for him. And she thinks that he might be losing his mind because of all the pressures and the things. He's not eating right. He's not sleeping right. He's just having problems. I mean, he had a tough life. He didn't even have a place to lay his head. Even when these disciples many times went home, he slept along the road. And Jesus responds, my mother and brothers are those who hear God's word and put them into practice. And what is his point? Listen to me. Spiritual ties are stronger than physical ties. And I don't like that, Steve. Well, I'm sorry. Spiritual ties are stronger than physical ties. Spiritual relationships are stronger than blood relationships. And the family that we have in faith is more significant than the family that we're born into. I know you have problems hearing this, but I want you to hear me out. And you may disagree, but let me just say this. You may have a family that you're born with, that you have here on earth, but you may never see some of those family members in eternity. You may never see them. And I'm telling you, if it's the most significant thing that we have, God will make a way that our families will never be separated. If our blood family were more significant than our spiritual family, then we would have them with us in eternity. But we're going to be with our spiritual family forever. We're going to be with each other forever. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't love and protect our families that God's given us here on earth. I'm not saying that they may not be, but I am saying that they may not be permanently with you. They may not be. God willing, they are. When the Bible focuses on family, it's always speaking of the spiritual family. But in today's culture, many focus so strongly on the blood family that it consumes their every decision. That the family has almost become an idol in our lives. That everything evolves around the family, our wives and our husbands and our kids and our grandchildren. Everything evolves around them. Everything we do and every decision that we make revolves around our earthly family. And God Himself says that we are to have no other gods before Him. How clever the devil is. To get people of God involved with an idolatrous relationship with something that we hold so very dear. But what Jesus is teaching here, that it's truly secondary. I can't go to church today, Steve. I got this family get-together thing I got to do. I can't attend Bible study. My kids play ball on that night. You know, look, I love the Lord, Steve, but my family's got to come first. I mean, I've heard it all. Heard it all. There are those that would say that they wanted to follow Jesus, but he said, you know, I need to take care of my family, Lord, but Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. And the others would say, look, I want to get into the ministry with you. I want to do these things, but I got stuff I got to deal with. And he says, if you're not willing to take up your cross daily, that you're not worthy of being my disciple. Friends, Jesus understands your family. He understands the situation. He understands the responsibilities that you have. But he also knew there's so much more. Jesus' mom and dad had to go back and find him at the temple when he was 12 years old. He had to go back and find him. He said, what are you doing here, boy? Well, Mom, I had to be doing about my father's business. I'm going to ask you this, brothers and sisters. Are you about your father's business? Are you about your own business? Or are you about your family's business? Or are you about your father's business? Paul refers to our family in Ephesians 3:14, 15. For this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom his whole family in heaven and on earth derives its name. A beautiful prayer. Love, there's no greater thing than I can think of than the love that I have for my family. Nothing greater. The greatest memories that I share with my wife, we talk about it all the time, how blessed we've been. The great gift of time that I've had with my children, the privilege it is to have lived with Matt and Kenzie and Kim and have grown up in my mother and father's home. But loved ones, think about it. What is your greatest desire for your children? Yeah, a good college education, finding a good spouse, getting that good job and support themselves, a nice home. I mean, really? That the greatest desire that we should have for our children, beloved, is that they know the Lord Jesus Christ, that they are part of His family. There's nothing that should be greater in our lives than our children becoming a part of the family of God. They're not automatically in just because you were born to you. They got to accept Him. They got to believe it. How are they going to do that? You got to live it. You got to seek it. You got to listen right. Our greatest joy should be when we know that they're walking in faith. Man, that they've placed their trust in Jesus. They've chosen Him to be and know and recognize that He is their Savior. What a wonderful thought. What a wonderful thought it is that I'm married to that precious Kim back there. But at the same time, I can call her my sister. She's not just my wife. She's my sister. My son Matthew is my son, and I love him. But he's also my brother in the family of God, my sweet Kenzie. Even though she's my daughter, she's my sister in Christ. That is awesome. That is awesome. As much as I love them as my children and as my wife, it is even more precious to me that they are a part of my family in God. I mean, man, I could spend every vacation with them, go to every ball game with them, provide for everything that they want, and still miss the point. If that is not our greatest desire, then you're not having the ears to hear with. And when what you think that you have most likely will be taken from you. Am I getting through? There's a lesson here, friends, that Christians have made an idol out of their families. That many have made a worship out of their marriages. I know Kim so often times in the past would just say to me, Lord, Lord. But I don't think she was thinking of me as her Lord. I think that was a prayer under her breath. Jesus said there'll be no marriage in heaven. I don't like that. I think some of you ladies are probably going, thank you, Lord. Your wives. So should I just discard marriage? Should I just say, well, marriage is not a big deal? It's not a big deal. Absolutely not. Keep marriage, though, in perspective. The ultimate issue for we husbands is that we present our wives to the Lord without blemish and without fault and without wrinkle. That's the point. That's the point of our marriage, men. It's not about how we present our wives to the world. I'm talking to the men. There's a lot of stuff to talk to the women, but I'm not. But it's not about how we present them to the world, that they got the best clothes and the nicest hair and their nails all done just right and they got the nicest car and the houses and all those things. And if we're doing that so that they can look special in the world, we're missing the point. Our point is to bring them to a place where they're presentable to God. All this stuff is going to be gone. All of it. Everything is going to be gone. So many things that we put so much emphasis in will not exist. If I hear the words of Jesus and I obey what He teaches and I put them into practice, then listen to me. I'm closer to Him than even He was with His own mother and His own brothers. If I do the same thing concerning that with my own family, He and I are closer than even my own family are. There was a man who said to his wife, and he was always telling her she was having trouble listening. He said, listen to me carefully. You're the engineer of a train. There are 36 people on board. At the first stop, 10 people get off and 2 people get on. At the next stop, 1 gets off and 5 get on. Are you with me? At the third stop, 4 get off and 2 get on. Now for the question. What is the name of the engineer? The name of the engineer was his wife. He said, you're the engineer. You're the engineer. And he's saying that you don't listen to me. You don't listen to what it is that I have to say because you're listening in the wrong way. This message has been an extension of the parable of the seed and the soil. And if you take this out of it out of context, we're going to miss what Jesus is trying to teach us here. It's about hearing properly. And when we've heard properly, then we react. We react. And a good sign of those that do not hear are the ones that do nothing. Sometimes people complain that reading God's Word and listening to it preached is just boring. I hear it a lot, and I agree that there's some portions of the Bible that are harder to read than others. You get into you get into some of the places with just a whole list of names. Man, it's just hard to get through that. I mean, I know that, I understand it. And I know that some preachers are not very excited when they preach. I understand that too. It's difficult. But the problem is, most of the time, is our attitudes to what it is that we're hearing. Now, you listen to me. There was this preacher by the name of Rowland Hill. He was in the 18th century. He was a British preacher that he was used greatly by God. I know you probably never heard of him, but he's a wonderful preacher. And he was visiting an old friend who'd said that, Pastor, he said, I've heard you preach now for 65 years, and I can even remember the first sermon or parts of the first sermon that you preached. He said, really, that's amazing. He said, can you tell me something about it? He said, yeah, one of the things that you said that was interesting. He said, because a lot of people don't like to hear preachers. A lot of times they'll complain about the preachers. They don't like the way he preaches, how he says, his mannerism, or whatever it is. They just simply don't get nothing out of it because they don't like the way the preacher preaches. He said, but you said, what if you were sitting and waiting to hear a will read from some wealthy relative that had just passed away? Now, when you sit down in the lawyer's office, you don't sit and complain about the way the lawyer speaks. You don't complain about the boring way that he pronounces his words or how he shares what it is that this will has to say. You're very attentive. You're very excited because you're about to hear something that you know you want to hear. You're going to receive something from this lost rich relative. And so when your attitude comes with the expectation to receive something from God, you'll stop worrying so much about how it's presented, but what it is that God has to say. It's not about the preacher, it's not about how he does things, but it's about how you have the ears to hear and listen correctly. Whether you're listening to God's Word or reading the Bible, take care how you listen. The Bible is God's revealed truth. And if you listen with a view of obedience, you're going to be blessed. There are riches that are in there for you if you'll listen carefully to how God speaks. Jesus' teaching is that the light that is we're the light that's put on the lampstand. And His words are not given for the primary purpose of concealing God's truth, but for revealing God's truth. But the same light that reveals truth, listen to me, the same light that reveals truth also exposes sin. And because of this twofold function of the light and God's truth, no one can respond neutrally to Jesus' teaching. Either you respond obediently and you draw near to God, or we ignore it and deceive ourselves. What we think we have one day will even be taken from us. Be careful how you hear, friends. Be careful how you hear. Let's pray. Our Father God, I pray we've heard you today. I pray that we listen and we respond. I pray, big God, your will to light the fire in such a way that we act on what it is that we know. Let us not harden our hearts, O Father, to your word. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Bob is going to come and he's going to lead us in our hymn of invitation. We're going to play the first and last verses of this.